All right. Well, welcome back to the book club. We're working through Secure Love by me, Julie Menanno. This is my book that kind of walks couples through the process that I use in my private practice, which is emotionally focused therapy for couples, which uses attachment theory as the framework to help couples heal. And you probably already know that if you're here. So last week we started with chapter 1, and it was pretty chaotic. Katrina and I did some problem solving with that. I wasn't, again, this is new for me, so I wasn't sure how things would go, but I'm trying to get it a little smoother today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a little presentation, which is kind of like my summary of chapter 2. And then I'm going to take some questions from you guys very specifically about chapter 2. I really want to stick to the content. And, maybe if we have a little bit of time left, I can take some broader questions. Um, and I don't know if I will because I do have a meeting right after this today, but some days I will have free space after the club so I can hang around a little bit more. If I get a question and I feel like we're kind of going off track, I'm just going to bookmark you and try to pull you back in on track just because the whole group is here to really talk about chapter 2. So we need to stick with that. And then I'd like to get, just a couple people and maybe just, not too elaborate, but kind of like, hey, this is how I've been using this information in my own relationship, and here's how this has really helped me. People have different ways of implementing information in their relationship, and it certainly can be helpful for all of us to kind of come together and talk about some of that. I mean, that's really why we're here. So, all right. I was going to say, does anybody have any questions for me? But I better avoid that because I will just go on and on to answer these questions and then get off topic. Um, all right. So let's go ahead and jump in. So this is just kind of my summarization of chapter 2. It's not super lengthy. Again, I'm trying to kind of figure out how to balance our time here. And if you have questions about any of this content, we'll do that at the end. Nothing so much new. Some of the stuff, there are some things that I've kind of twisted around a little tiny bit in later chapters. I had an opportunity to change a little bit of the content a year ago, which I did. I added a little more into the book about anger. So if you have the original copy, the copy that is kind of available now has a little bit of some more stuff about anger. And then I have another opportunity to tweak some stuff this month because the paperback is coming out. So that's going to be my last opportunity to tweak anything um, for a while. And I don't even know if I'm going to this time. I need to go through each chapter. But if any of that tweaking does come up in subsequent chapters, I'm going to talk to you about that and say, hey, here's what I kind of added here. And this chapter doesn't really have anything novel. It's pretty much just going to stay as is. Okay, sorry, I have not found a faster way to do this. All right, here we go. So we are doing, chapter 2, which is basically an overview of attachment theory. Chapter 3 dives deeper into the different styles, but chapter 2 gives a broad overview. Of course, there's a lot of nuance that I wasn't, you can't put everything in a book. So this is why I love this opportunity here to kind of dive deeper into the nuance for those of you who are needing that. And, again, I just want to say, there are lots of different ways to look at relationships and make sense of them, right? And the way that I have found the most useful way, and that doesn't mean it's the only useful way, I bring in lots of different ways of looking at relationships and attachment theory. But I use predominantly attachment theory because for me, it's the most clear and understandable way to make sense of relationships and has the most truth to it. It's not a perfect theory. Not everybody is going to relate to all of the, theories of it and categorizations, but I think it's a very much a good enough theory and it really helps me help people. And what I really like is the better you can explain and the more clear you can explain how relationships work, the better the roadmap is to healing. So, um, all right. So basically, one sec, I'm going to pull up my little narrative here. I'm going to kind of read my notes here as we go. Um, so, shoot, where did hold on. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to get better at this, I promise. Okay, forget that. Okay, so basically the broad overview of attachment theory is that children who aren't adequately emotionally supported are going to struggle supporting their own emotions. Now, does that mean that adults don't have insecure attachment? Absolutely, they do. And there are situations where an adult can come out of childhood with a very secure attachment and then get into a relationship where they develop an insecure attachment. It does happen. What I see in my practice over and over again is that those people that end up in insecurely attached adult relationships had some of that going into the relationship. They had some difficulty being with their own emotions and regulating their own emotions and comforting and supporting and processing their own emotions to begin with. And that doesn't mean that the relationship doesn't can create further damage or even create the damage to begin with. But what happens is it's really a basic concept that if you don't grow up in a home that is emotionally supportive enough, it doesn't mean perfect, it just means enough emotional support that you learn how to kind of do your own emotions in a way that's healthy instead of unhealthy. If you didn't get that growing up, it's hard to know how to do it as an adult. If you didn't get the practice, if you didn't at least have someone there acknowledging and comforting your emotions, and if you didn't at least have people modeling how to do their own emotions with health, it's hard to just have, come out of that knowing what to do. And so when people don't have healthy strategies, what do? They try to get their emotional needs met through any way they can. And a lot of times those end up being in ways that aren't so healthy for them or their relationship or their partner. And so, attachment theory, we use four broad categories to explain how people react to their attachment distress and the emotional pain that comes from that. And what we have found is that most people will fall into one of these four broad categories, that is anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and secure. And there are many people that have come along and have brought, more nuance to those categories, and I'm totally supportive of that. I um, definitely get much more nuance in my work, but I do think that there's truth to the fact that these broad categories are have a lot of usefulness until they don't, right? And so this is not part of this. Okay. So anxious attachment is, you know, someone with an anxious attachment, their way of regulating their pain that they're not really able to fully access and sit with because they don't know how. So their way of regulating is, well, I got to control everything outside of me. That's how I'm going to stay emotionally safe. That could be on a personal level, being an overcleaner, or having some OCD, or being perfectionistic about the way they look, or being super successful, being a people pleaser, right? It's all about kind of controlling the external to feel okay inside. And in relationships, that's going to turn into an over focus on the partner's state. If only if my partner's okay and they're okay with me, and everything's okay and I feel safe, can I really feel okay inside? Now, it's tricky because we all want our partner to be okay and be in a good place with us, but it crosses this line where it's like the end of the world if, what's outside of them isn't going well. It's hard for them to step back and go, okay, I know this is uncomfortable for me, but like, how can I try to manage, my own pain in the situation that's kind of triggering this pain with health? And they don't do that. Instead, they get panicky and they go back to this is never going to end because in their experience, bad things didn't end or good things were followed by bad things. How this where this stems from with anxious attachment is going to be chronic emotional abandonment from childhood and then later reinforced in these adult relationships. And the kind of, core message that those with anxious attachment got growing up in a variety of ways, not spoken, maybe spoken, is your emotional self is too much. You're too much. You're asking for too much. Your emotions are too big for me to be able to deal with. And this part of you is either broken or bad or not deserving of care. And then we have avoidant attachment. And that's when we're going to, someone with avoidant attachment, they have the same bad feelings stuck in there somewhere. It's all the same emotional pain at the end of the day. But those with avoidant attachment, their go-to is just they've gotten good at really just stuffing those feelings down, getting them far out of awareness, distracting from them. Um, trying to, a lot of avoidant attachment is rooted in shame and failure. So instead of offsetting their pain with trying to reach others and not be abandoned, their way of offsetting the pain is how can I be successful and get it right in life? So again, there's that outer control, but it's got more of an inner control flavor to it because there's a lot of like, I'm just going to put my feelings away. I'm going to make sure that I don't go there so I don't have to behave badly and be seen as failing. And then again, it's still emotional self abandonment. It's all emotional self abandonment, not knowing how to be there with your own emotions in a way that not only helps you regulate, but helps you know what you're needing from others to help you with these painful emotions. Um, the people that I work with that have avoidant attachment over and over again, what I hear is messages that it's not okay to feel, it's not okay to show emotions, it's not okay to express emotions. It's just not something we do, right? Um, and so they kind of take that on as a way of dealing with their own emotions. Disorganized attachment, sometimes it's going to be as simple as someone who just kind of does a mix of all of it. Um, I think everybody, whether they're anxious or avoidant, sometimes avoids and sometimes handles their emotions anxiously. It's just that for avoidance, the strategy is going to weigh heavily toward avoiding. And with the anxious, it's going to weigh heavily toward acting out. And then with disorganized, you're just going to see more of all of it. And then you usually have some trauma layers on top of that, where it's not just being anxious or avoidant, it's actually, you know, getting really big, really overwhelmed, bigger periods of dysregulation, bigger behaviors, sometimes dissociation. And then you're definitely going to get with disorganized attachment, just higher levels of mistrust, just difficult time trusting that people actually, really can be there for you. Everybody's looked through the lens of how are they abandoning me? And this happens even without evidence to support the mistrust. And that is because in their experience growing up, they really did get damaged by other people. And then with secure attachment, someone with a secure attachment, they certainly have painful things happen in life. They don't like feeling pain. It's uncomfortable and sometimes it's extremely painful. But they have this trust within, I can manage it. I'll get by. It's not going to, kill me. And I can reach for support. I can somehow manage this in healthy ways. There's not that layer of panic over on top of the pain. And when you have that ability to be there for your own emotions with regulation, you are going to be more capable of not only emotionally supporting or getting emotional support from, I'm sorry, emotionally supporting your partner, but knowing what you need from them, knowing what are appropriate expectations. That's one thing that I really, want to help people with is even knowing what appropriate expectations are from a partner. And some people develop secure attachment in childhood. That's just how they were raised. And some people get it as an adult, which is probably what a lot of you are doing now in your life, is you're trying to get to a better place of security within and with your partner. And that's called an earned secure attachment. And there's no expiration date on developing a secure attachment. All right, so then we move into attachment needs. Okay, so these are what needs to happen between partners for them to feel emotionally safe and close to each other. These attachment needs need to be met. They're pretty much universal. Different cultures have different ways of meeting the needs. They have different meanings around the way they live and operate life. But if you dig through all of that, it's the same basic attachment needs: to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel validated and appreciated and understood and shown up for and comforted and helped and trusted and trusting. We all need this from someone else in the world. In Western civilization, that's typically going to be a romantic partner. It's nice to get it from other people too. But in our, way of living, it's romantic partnerships and parent-child is where we expect most of this to be met. Culturally, the people could be getting, not all of these from their romantic partner in some other cultures, but that's how we're doing it here. So I'm going to kind of keep it in that context. And so when these needs are met, even just in a moment, okay, you're in this conversation with your partner and you're not feeling seen, you're not feeling heard, you're not feeling like they're going to help you with what you're struggling with, you are going to experience emotional pain. The emotional pain will stem from the unmet need. And then in other moments when you're talking with your partner about something and for whatever reason they're more regulated and open to you and you're feeling appreciated and understood, you're going to get a positive emotional experience. And so really what I'm doing with the couples I work with is I'm helping them maximize this in their conversations, in their interactions with each other, even physical interactions. It doesn't just have to be words. So when I maximize this, we're building up positive emotions, which is then building up secure attachment in the broader sense of the relationship. Um, and then when these attachment needs are unmet, right? When we're not feeling these things, again, we're going to hurt. It hurts. It truly hurts. It's not in your mind. It's not you taking things too personally. There might be some truth to that because of your own issues, but at the end of the day, the hurt is very real when we don't feel accepted by others, especially our partner. And it's more than just sadness. It's a feeling of defeat for some people, or a feeling of loneliness or rejection or failure. And then on top of that, now we have this insecure, really, people who have this insecure attachment with self. Okay, because these feelings are kind of like normal to all humans in some situations. Like everybody feels rejected sometimes. You don't have to have an insecure attachment to feel rejected or feel like you're failing, right? But it doesn't end there with people who have a hard time with their own emotions. It goes from that to shame and fear that it won't ever end, that you can't ever get yourself out of it. And so that's where that extra layer of fear can really come in and create a lot of problems. It can create a lot of arguments that are dysregulated and negative cycles because we're not just dealing with the issue at hand. Now we're dealing with the pain that we're talking about. And now we're dealing with the fear around the pain. And that blocks everybody from being able to hear and understand each other. Those with anxious attachment, what they're going to do with their pain, again, move toward their partner. That's not a bad thing, right? It's a good thing. We need people to move toward their partner. It's just sometimes in some situations, they're not moving toward their partner in a way that works. And they're coming at it with high pressure, right? The high pressure. I've got to do this in a way so I don't have to feel rejected and abandoned. And then those with avoidant attachment, they're kind of doing the opposite. They're reacting to their pain with more distance and more deflection. And sometimes there's value in that. Sometimes we need distance, right? It's not, distance isn't bad in and of itself. It's bad when it is going too far, when it's creating actual disconnection. It's not meant as a way to keep the relationship safe and protect the relationship from this dysregulated state we're both in right now that isn't going to go anywhere. And it's really set up to avoid painful feelings. And with avoidant, it's going to typically be something around failure and shame at the end of the day. And shame too, with, it's tricky because at the end of the day, they both don't want to be abandoned. They both don't want to face failure and they both don't want to face shame. It's just, it shows up with these different flavors. Um, and then with disorganized attachment, you're just not going to see consistent reactions. It's just going to be kind of all over the place and a lot of times bigger and badder. And when I say badder, I mean more destructive. Let's say that, not badder. And then those with secure attachment, the way they go about managing their emotional pain is for one, they're able to be with themselves and kind of figure out what am I needing in this place. And two, the way they communicate when they're triggered is with vulnerability and healthy assertion instead of all of these negative cycle ways that we will talk about later as we get further into the book. All right, so that's what I have for you. And then I'm going to right now just kind of start taking some questions about any of that content specifically or chapter 2 specifically. And then we will, I'd like to get some feedback too from those of you who are using this work in your life in a way that's helping you. So you can share that with the others. So Katrina, do you want to tell me who to address? So Katrina's kind of trying to keep up with how to go about answering people.
Sure, there's a hand raised right now in the
Okay, Taral.
panelists. Yes.
Okay. All right. Hi, Taral. I just want to double check before we go here if you're going to ask about this chapter. Just try to keep it on.
Mhm. It's
I'm
actually
telling
about something you just said.
I'm going to tell everybody that, by the way. It's not just you.
So I think one of the things that you briefly mentioned, and maybe this is coming a little later, but I was hoping you could kind of maybe at least give a brief overview of expectations and
Sure.
kind of, I think you had mentioned in terms of like the needs being met and like making sure you have like the right expectations.
Sure. You know what? Thank you for asking that because I think I am going to add that when I have right now, as I have this opportunity to be a little bit more explicit in the book about healthy expectations. So yes, so I can go ahead and answer that. So we all, now again, I'm coming from a Western viewpoint. Okay. This might not be culturally the same for everybody in the world, but this is what I believe. I believe that we all have the right to expect emotional support from our partner. We might not, some people sadly don't know how to verbalize that before they go into the relationship because they might not even know they need emotional support or what that even means, or they're not able to give it to themselves. But if you're, in my opinion, if you are dedicating your life to someone, you're going to live with them day in and day out, you're going to give them all of you, then absolutely you have a healthy right to expect emotional support. And if that person isn't able to provide you with emotional support, or you're not able to, have an emotionally supportive relationship on both sides, then I do believe there's some responsibility and expectation of responsibility to try to figure out how to do that. Not only is it, do you deserve it? But it also is just will dramatically help your relationship not have conflict. I mean, there's so much value in it. Sometimes people don't know the value though. And then that doesn't mean that your partner will be able to give you that or will be open to help. Just because, you know, you have a right to expect that, sadly doesn't mean your partner will be able to do it. So the book is about helping couples get there. It's not just as easy as saying you're supposed to do this. You have to actually learn how. I mean, nobody isn't emotionally supportive typically willfully. Usually it's because they just don't know how to do it. And sometimes what looks like stubbornness is actually stemming from the fact that they just don't know how to do it differently. Now, we deserve, when I say emotional support, we deserve being seen and validated and held in our painful emotions, being comforted, being able to say, hey, I get really anxious about this, and be like, I'm so sorry, and I'm right here for you. How can I help you with that? We deserve help with those emotions, not for our partners to make them go away or be exactly who and what we want them to be, so we don't experience our own personal anxiety. Sometimes it's hard to figure out the difference between the two. Some people regulate their anxiety in just as a person in these ways. I'll give you an example. Some people regulate their anxiety by having these kind of really perfectionistic standards around cleanliness and organization. We all want a clean house, but it kind of crosses the line into I can't feel okay. And if my house isn't as clean as I want it to be, that's going to trigger these deeper feelings in me of being overwhelmed or maybe people will reject me. And then they don't know how to get emotional support from their partner for those feelings of fear and rejection and all the stuff under that. So what they do is they want their partner to help them with their anxiety by meeting them in their perfectionistic expectation of cleanliness. That's not a good expectation. That's not a healthy expectation. It is healthy to expect a healthy division of labor and reasonable expectations of, how we keep our home. But when it crosses the line into this, like, this is how I'm regulating, some people think, well, my partner really needs to agree with me on how to live life in every way. That's not a reasonable expectation. It's reasonable to expect that your partner is able to do their part in the relationship to help your attachment needs be met, not your individual attachment needs with self, but your relationship attachment needs to feel safe. Like we can talk about things and I'm not going to feel shamed and, put down, or I'm going to feel like you can hear me and respect me and see me and appreciate me and understand me. And emotionally close, which is what happens when we feel seen and understood. One is the negative creates the emotional unsafety, and the positive creates the emotional connection. And so, both partners take responsibility for their own role in creating unsafety in the relationship or getting in the way of closeness. Both partners take responsibility for their own role in meeting each other's attachment needs. As opposed to saying, it's just all your fault, or the vast majority of the time, both people are in some way contributing to an unhealthy environment. And both partners, it's okay, it's reasonable, it's healthy to expect that your partner take responsibility for their role in that. And it's okay to say, in order to feel safe and close, I need for you to be able to take responsibility for your role. It's not just all me. I'm willing to take responsibility for my role now too. And yeah, so I hope that helps answer the question. It's going to be more helpful for me to write that out really more explicitly. And in fact, I have in this course I'm doing for anxious attachment self-work. So there's probably some pieces I'm missing to that, but I am getting more clear in my own mind about how to express that. All right. Katrina?
Yes, Xana.
Hi, Xana. Just to double check, we're talking about chapter 2. You're still muted.
We go. I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's okay.
Chapter 2. I read the chapter before the meeting here, and you talked about the 4 C's of attachment. Can I ask something?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. So in the comfort, you talk about, like, for example, when you have a tense argument with your brother about something important to you, can you count on your partner to provide you with comfort instead of leading with advice? So my partner always leads with advice, and I try
Sure.
to explain to him that I just try to explain to him that right now I just need him to be there for my feelings,
Sure.
but I know he wants to be helpful, and I just don't have the right words to help him understand, because he thinks if I'm rejecting the advice, I'm rejecting his help,
Sure.
and he doesn't know what else I'm looking for. How can I help him better understand that the advice is welcome, just not at the moment that I'm
Sure.
having the strong feelings?
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on with him is his way of dealing with his bad emotions has always been problem solving, right? That's how he does it. It's like figure out what to do differently, problem solve, fix it. That's probably worked very well for him in many parts of life. And it's probably one of the things you love about him is there's
Yeah.
something safe about his ability to kind of regulate his feelings and go into, let's just kind of take charge here.
Yeah.
And so, but that has had to come at the expense of the other piece, which is really being able to access and feel his emotions. For instance, the fear around not being able to fix the situation or the pain that is leading him to need to fix the situation to begin with. So we're just trying to kind of bring in more of that. So what I would do is I would lead with, hey, listen, this part of you that is so good at problem solving and advice giving, I love that about you. That's one of the reasons that I'm sitting here with you right now. But what I'm learning is that for me to be more open to your advice, first, I just kind of need some comfort because it does bring up some painful things for me when I have these arguments. And just knowing that you can kind of hear how this hurts me and just kind of maybe just say, hey, I get it. And just give me a hug or just hold me or,
I say that.
what?
I say that. I say, can you just give me a hug? And he
Okay.
goes, how's that going to fix it? And I'm like,
Okay, so I would again, if you go in with appreciation and validation of his defense and the honoring the fact that that defense isn't always a defense. Sometimes it's just a healthy way of being in the world. He might then get more regulated and open to hearing what you need. And then the answer to how is that going to fix it is it's going to help me feel emotionally closer and safer. It's going to help regulate my nervous system. And that's going to make me more open to your good advice.
right,
Right?
perfect.
Wouldn't that be great if I could, you could feel good about giving advice? I know that's something that you feel really good about. And wouldn't it be great if I can, also get some of the emotional support I'm needing so I can be more open to that?
Would it be safe to say it's like connection over correction? First you connect, then you can.
I like that line a lot. In this situation, it might not, I don't know, something about that might kind of be too preachy. I don't know.
Okay, got it.
Maybe, yeah,
Got it.
I know that's nuanced. I hate that because I
Okay.
hate to give people mixed messages. But in this situation, I
Mhm.
would lead with trying to meet some of his needs
Sure.
before, because he's got a block, right? And is that ideal that you have to meet his needs when you have needs of your own? Maybe not. Maybe it's not fair. But the goal is to get your needs met, right? And so we're
Yeah.
going to kind of, he doesn't know that he has this emotional need to feel seen for his way of doing it, right? But he does. Otherwise, he wouldn't protest to you. So, or question it. So we need to say to him, like, hey, I want to meet your needs too. I love this part about you. It's so great that you can help me with life. But I'm also needing this, kind of emotional support. So I can let that in. I want to be able to let you in. Because doesn't it feel
Yeah.
good for you when I say, wow, thank you for that?
Mm. I
Yeah.
think that's the part I was missing. Just it will help me let your advice in.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely. I
you.
call this validating their resistance. And
Okay.
this is how I 100% work with my clients is I'm just always validating their resistance because nobody really wants to hear that, they're I don't know. Most people, there is a healthy function to whatever their defenses are, and they're not really going to let those go if they're not able to be honored for the health in them. And then when people are honored for the health, then they get a little more capable of stepping back and questioning it on their own.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Um,
And Julie, there's a couple questions that I've sent
Okay.
you too.
okay. Do you find that women with anxious attachment tend to mother their partners? Any tips for comforting your partner without stepping in and helping problem solving? You know, what I find is that yes, anxious attachment can be mothering, but I also find that avoidant attachment can be fathering, you know, with men. So it's like, you know, with anxious attachment, you know, it's like caretaking. I'm going to caretake you so you're okay, so I don't have to feel, you know, like you're in pain and then distancing from me. And then with the flip side of that, it's more like I'm going to fix us and I'm going to make us, you know, feel safe, and I'm going to kind of like enable your bad behavior, because if I could just get it right for you, you wouldn't have to behave badly. So, yes, I do believe that, you know, we always want to look at it. The tricky part about all of this work is that none of this stuff is bad inherently. You know, it's healthy to support your partner and cook for them and do these things for them that, you know, we all feel good doing for our partners, especially when that's being reciprocated and, you know, equally in whatever way that looks for a couple. But, you know, it crosses a line when it's I'm afraid, I'm acting out of fear. I'm doing all this stuff not just because I like it and it fills me up, but it crosses this line where I'm doing it because I'm kind of anxiously trying to keep you okay so you don't fall apart, and that will then affect us and have a bad impact on me, or I'll have to see you in pain and that will hurt me to see you in pain, or if I don't take good care of you, you're going to distance from me. So I think the first step is absolutely recognizing where it's fear driven and where it's connection seeking. And if it's fear driven, we got to figure out another way to care for those fears than enabling someone's, you know, yes, you can absolutely enable someone to the point that they're not taking accountability and responsibility for the problem. And so, you know, can someone mute? Someone came on and, um, okay. Yeah. So what happens is I want you to step back and really think, you know, is the way I'm managing this situation putting so much pressure on what I'm wanting my partner, whatever this problem is I'm wanting them to solve, that they're not able to actually step back and go, why do I want to solve this problem? You know, I'll give you an example. Someone I know, their father had been struggling with alcoholism his whole entire life. He's like, you know, in his mid 70s at this point. And you know, everyone around him has been pushing him into rehab and pushing him to stop and really, you know, putting the pressure on and sending him to AA. And he's tried all of it. He's gone to rehab, he's gone to AA, and he's tried the whole deal. But it's always been coming from others. And finally, everyone just kind of figured, well, there's nothing we're doing. You know, they gave up. They said, you know, he's older now. He's just going to have to do what he's going to do. And so it took about 2 years, but then he started realizing like he is now feeling the impact of the consequences and having some space to recognize, hey, I don't want the rest of my life to be like this. It's always been kind of taken up by others. So he's been put in defensive protective mode. And now that that energy is cleared, he's having to take his own responsibility. So yeah, I think maybe think of those two things. Like, am I taking on so much responsibility in my partner's problem solving that they're not doing it on their own? And what about being the caretaker here sometimes is out of fear, and what's out of just, you know, wanting to feel good in the world and get those fulfilling needs met that we have when we are helping with our partners. Okay, let's go to, actually, let me go back to chat. Let me make sure. Okay, someone says, is there an overlap between attachment types and personality disorders? Yes, because, you know, absolutely, because some of this stuff is biologically rooted. It's brain issues. I mean, we live in a world that, there's a lot of stuff that can go on that can affect the structure of our brain that can make it more likely that we're going to struggle with things. But I do believe that most of these issues, addictions, OCD, personality disorders, anxiety disorders, are absolutely relationship rooted. We learn to manage emotions via relationships. Relationships help us, safe relationships help us feel safe and secure in the world. And when we don't feel safe and secure, and when we feel alone with all this pain, and when we don't know how to manage it, our body is stressed, and that starts showing up in ways we behave, which are in line a lot of times with some personality disorders. Personality disorders are behaviors that are ways of regulating painful emotions that are typically relationship rooted, early relationship rooted. And then we also can create so much stress in our bodies with all this unprocessed emotion that it can then do more kind of stuff in our brain that leads to, depression or anxiety and all these things. So absolutely. I'm not going to go as far as saying you can cure personality disorders and any other, OCD simply by improving one's relationships, but it can certainly go a long way in helping and be a huge part of that puzzle. In fact, I have a hard time believing that anyone can fully heal from those things without having healthy relationships in their life. It's not always a cure-all. Sometimes it can be. It certainly decreases nervous system distress. Safe relationships help people not have to act out in all these ways that they're crying to get their emotional needs met. When you're getting your emotional needs met, you're no longer having to cry to get them met. Or you're no longer having to stuff them so far out of awareness that you're not even, you're just a shell of a human. Okay, let's go to Sahira. Sahira, I hope I'm saying that right. Hi.
Yeah, it's Sahira. Hi.
I like you have such a beautiful smile.
Oh,
Thanks for bringing that to the group.
oh, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
my question is on the unreasonable expectations. Is it a reasonable expectation that an avoidant partner has a responsibility for raising their unmet needs, their issues, their challenges, without, it being all on the other partner
Sure.
to ask, or to try
Yes.
or not actually be told. And yeah, and so is it something different when an avoidant partner doesn't say anything and abruptly
Mhm.
leaves and discards an established relationship with no explanation, nothing?
I do believe that is a healthy expectation. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to live up to that
Yeah.
expectation, sadly. But yes, absolutely, it is something to advocate for. And here's why. Takes a major toll on the relationship if they're not able to do that, right? Because
Mm,
if they're not able to do that, what are they doing? Well, they're disconnecting, that's damaging. They're stuffing their own feelings and acting them out with anger or whatever, that's damaging. I mean, there's all these ways that people are dealing with this stuff that hurt the relationship that we need to shift that into dealing with it in a healthy way.
yeah.
Sadly, they might not recognize the value in doing that because they haven't experienced any value in doing that. But it is something to continue advocating for in a healthy way. It's about planting seeds. It's not always like, I need you to start showing up and then they magically show up the next day. Sometimes it takes a while to just keep that conversation going for them to recognize, hey, this is a thing that I do, right? And, I like to think of it as this, like, imagine, your partner is just kind of coming into the kitchen and throwing trash on the ground, right? And not putting it in the trash can. And just, every time they have a paper towel or a banana peel or whatever, they just kind of toss it on the ground. Like, that's not good. That's not okay. That's going to create bigger, much bigger problems than just one banana peel on the floor. Would we reasonably expect them to pick up their own trash and be responsible for it and put it in the trash can? Absolutely. It's the same.
Mm.
That's an obvious one. With physical things, people, it's so obvious to people. Of course, that's a healthy expectation. But then
Yeah.
sometimes with emotional issues, you can't see them, so it's like, if you had a broken leg, you would reasonably expect your partner to help accommodate you getting around the house and bringing you
Mm.
soup or whatever. So, and then, I want to add this in, and actually I'm going to write this down to maybe add to the book. So there's like four, I might be butchering this, sorry if I am, but there's like four basic stages of change. One is there's no problem. I'm doing it fine. I don't need to be, I don't need to take care of your emotions, which is not what it's about. Okay.
Mm.
We're expecting comfort and help, not doing the work for us.
Yeah.
And so the first one is, well, I'm not responsible for your feelings, or I don't want to bring things up because why bother? We're just going to get in a fight. It's just like really defending that unhealthy way, right? Not recognizing there's any issue. Two is starting to kind of be like, yeah, maybe there is something here. Maybe I have kind of been stuffing my emotions. Maybe some of these ways that I'm behaving or some of the problems in our relationship might kind of be rooted in me not having a lot of emotional health. And then the third is like, okay, I recognize this as a problem and I want to
Mm.
do something about it, but that wanting to do something about it kind of wavers and I'm not really sure what to do. And, I want to do it because it's the right thing, but I don't necessarily want to do it. And then the fourth stage is, this is in me. I'm doing it. I'm ready to do the change. I'm ready to take action. And it's
Mm.
become kind of part of who I am. If there is a person who came up with those stages that is not me, I'm sorry, I don't know who they are and giving them credit for it right now, but you can Google it to find it.
And
Okay.
so it is me and my pattern. And to say we were doing at one stage very well, listening to
Mhm.
your couple sessions and him
Good.
starting to identify because it was all new to him. But yes, if someone's
Yeah.
not willing to do the work or talk or tell you,
And I mean, I hate to say this because nobody wants to hear this, but it does sometimes take time. And sometimes it's a two-step forward, two-step back. Like they kind of get open to the idea that there's something going on, but then they go back and close
yeah,
down, because that's their safe place. People don't leave their safe place very easily. And so
mm,
sometimes it does, the change process really needs to, be given
yeah,
some space and time. And I would never want someone to indefinitely stay in something toxic where they're not getting their needs met. And by stay, that means stay physically or even stay emotionally. Some people
mm,
need to stay physically, but they have to, detach emotionally for whatever good reasons they have. They don't want to split the kids up or whatever. It's not that bad that. So
mm.
it's kind of like that balancing act where you got to give it space, but you also got to recognize your own limitations.
And is there, I don't know if there is an answer to this question, is there a way to, if you're anxious attachment, to not keep attracting avoidance who
Yes.
aren't,
Start showing up
can't,
for your own emotions. Start learning how to show up for yourself and how
yeah,
to comfort yourself so you know what you need from others. Once you
yeah.
know what you need from others, it's easy because you know if you're getting it or not. If you
So I,
know,
I, I am there. I
okay,
seem to get the same. And I was so proud of how I was holding it and dealing with it.
good.
And then had the same experience and it
Mhm.
triggers, so much in me. So I'm kind of going,
Well,
okay.
if it's triggering you, that means that you're not getting the need met.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Probably. It could be some self-work too. If you're not getting the need met, that's a really good sign that the person doesn't know how to help you. So, one option is they are willing to learn how for you guys to have a healthy relationship. That's okay. Hey, I get it. There's some blocks here. Let's learn how to do this better for each other.
Yeah.
And then the other option is, well, this isn't going to work for me because I do have a reasonable expectation of emotional support and I'm already not feeling it. And
Yeah.
so, is some of this coming from my block or is this, kind of their block? And it sounds like maybe it is. And in that case, it might not be a good idea if that person isn't willing to work on it with you.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, there are just a lot of insecurely attached people out there. So the fact that you're finding them doesn't
Avoidant.
necessarily mean you're going toward them. It just means that they're there are just many people, I mean, anxious too, you know, it's really, there's just a lot of people out there. And so really to me, because of that, it's not a matter of finding someone who's already healed, but finding someone who's super open to healing with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but trust your gut. If you're not feeling, if you're feeling triggered and something's off, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, I'm gonna do one more because I have to go right off here to get to my next client. So let's do Amina. Hi,
Thank you
welcome
for
back.
choosing
Glad-
me. Thank you. I plan to be here every step of the way. I
Well,
just signed
lovely.
up for your course one, so I'm
Oh,
excited.
good. Okay,
It's starting to all make sense.
good.
Can you just briefly, I know you have to go, just talk a little bit more about the ABS system,
Yeah,
the
sure.
attachment
So
behavior system. Thank you.
yeah, so imagine like, you know, you're hungry, like, right? How are you going to know you're hungry? Your body is going to give you signals. You know, your stomach's going to feel upset, you might feel weak, you might get a headache. Like your body is going to be like, "Hey, it's attention. We need some attention here. You got to eat." And it's the same. Our body has a similar um, system to staying safe with a tribe, basically, right? We can't survive if we're not eating. So our body has to tell us periodically it's time to eat. That doesn't mean we're eating all day long. It's just like, hey, it's time, come on. And our bodies, for survival, you know, we have learned to be, you know, like dogs and wolves and pack animals. Like we don't go out on we don't survive as humans in the wild on our own. We're vulnerable to predators and the elements and all this stuff. So we have been wired for however many years to need to stay safe. So when we're not safe with our tribe, which is typically in our world are going to be our romantic partner, at least that's the context that I work in, we are meant to feel a discomfort. We're meant to experience discomfort. That discomfort is saying, it's our body's way of saying via stomach tightening, via bad feeling in our chest, via, you know, however we get there. It's our body's way of saying you need to reestablish safety. Now, from there, it becomes a question of what are we needing to do to get to the safety? The answer to that question is really going to be based on what's the pain you're dealing with. Are you feeling, or is it a rejection? Is it a fear that I can't trust you to stay close to me? Is it a fear that you're cheating on me and I'm being abandoned? You know, your body's saying something, and then that's the self-work is diving in and trying to figure out what the pain is trying to communicate to you. You know, when your body is hungry, your body might be communicating, I need protein or I need carbs, right? And so we just kind of intuitively know what to go for based on what we're craving, but we've lost that connection to our own emotions. So we know the pain is there, but we just go to the convenience store and, you know, start like taking everything off the shelf we can that might not really be what we need or good for us. And so with the emotional work, it's a matter of diving in and starting to really learn about what is my unmet need here? What is the pain around that unmet need? You know, sometimes the answer in getting attachment safety met, very paradoxically, is to leave the relationship. That sounds so counterintuitive, but your body is saying this doesn't feel safe and it doesn't have a lot of hope that that's ever going to change. Now I need to go through the grieving process. You know, of course, my work is to avoid that and to help people get healthy with each other. But just to kind of let you know where it goes if that need is, it's not possible to get that pain filled. And then the reason that people go through this very painful period of grieving when they do detach is because it is a physical attachment. Your body has to go through this kind of purging the attachment in energy to the point where it no longer has that drive to seek closeness with that person.
So it goes back to basically your body talking to you. The body
Yes.
kind of keeps score, goes
Yes.
back into that realm of things. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate
Okay.
you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being here. All right. So I'll go ahead and hop off right now, but thank you guys for coming. Felt a little calmer to me today. That's good. I hope you guys picked that up. And so tomorrow I'll just do, I mean, next week I'll just do kind of the same structure. And we didn't get to the feedback, but next time I'll have more time and we'll do that then. So thank you everybody for coming. And again, that course, you mentioned the course I have online right now isn't the anxious self-help one. That one I'm still trying to work on. The one I have two online right now. One is the kind of overview of attachment theory, and then the next one is shame. And I think that's really super, super helpful, that shame one. So, but I'm still working on that anxious one.
Will you do a class on shame, kind of like this? Have you thought about that?
I did a whole, yes, I did one,
Okay.
a 2-hour one. And actually that is the course. The course
That
is a
is the course.
recording
Okay.
of that class. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I haven't got there yet. Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.